are allowed to think big and dream big. How to generate different systems. Systems that provide stability and are nested within the harmony of nature. I'm excited to explore with you the intriguing bandwidth of information our researchers and friends have surfaced. Let's dive into our next topic to find out how we can actively shape a future worth pursuing and living for.
Hello and welcome to my podcast as part of our podcast series Generating Different Systems. Today I want to take a look back on the COVID-19 pandemic to see which vulnerabilities the global crisis has revealed and see what's needed to generate a system that is more resilient against upcoming challenges. It is 2023. If somebody had told me 3 years ago that we were going to be hit by a pandemic, I would not have believed it. Despite scientists warning for decades, even explicitly declaring in an article from 2007 the large reservoir of SARS-CoV-like viruses in horse beds in connection with wildlife trade as a time bomb. But how could I? Life was vibrant, people were chatting in cafes and restaurants, at concerts and festivals, or were traveling somewhere in the world. Everything seemed normal and safe. But the outbreak of COVID-19 proved that this was an illusion and that life was everything but safe. COVID-19 shattered reality into pieces. Within a week, the social and cultural life broke apart, borders were closed, and structures of all kind that were an integral part of everybody's daily private and public life were shut down. Everybody, except the ones that were perceived as system relevant, like people working in hospitals, had to stay in a lockdown to contain the risk of spreading the virus, while contacts to family and friends were restricted. The outbreak of COVID-19 and the closing of borders had severe consequences, not only on the private, regional and transnational level, but also for the global interconnected world that had developed crucial economic interdependencies on the global flows over the last decades. The lack of consumers and travelers worldwide was not only a catastrophe for airlines like Thomas Cook and Condor that went bankrupt, but also for the whole infrastructure of gastronomy, hotels, cafes, restaurants and retailers, especially in touristic or urban regions. Over the last decades, tourism has developed to an economical backbone in many countries by stabilizing jobs and income of millions of people, and COVID-19 threatened their existence. Furthermore, interruptions in the delivery chains due to border closings and the high demand from consumers led to delays and failures of supply, as worldwide, companies and harbors were closed for some time due to infections and prevention measures. Many companies did not receive anymore the materials they needed for further production processes. In consequence, several companies and jobs became casualties of the crisis. In addition, the news was full of scandals, of companies like Amazon or the mass meat producer Tönnies, where a high number of employees got infected. According to the Global Risks Report, one of the 5 main risks allowing viruses to spread easily between their hosts is a high population density under partly unhygienic conditions. Therefore, it is no surprise that workplaces with many employees and cities with a high population density like Wuhan developed into breeding grounds and spread events of COVID-19. Besides humans, also other animals became casualties of the virus. In a Danish fur factory, more than 18 million minks were culled when they got infected with a mutated version of the virus. 18 million animals of genetically identical species in a confined space under semi-unhygienic conditions. That are the perfect conditions for viruses to spread and mutate. This would never exist in nature. In addition, mass production of animal goods is linked to the 4 other risks mentioned by the Global Risks Report. Global interconnectedness, deforestation and migration, which also play a crucial role in the 5th, climate change. All of the mentioned raise the risks for new viruses and thereby also zoonoses, the transmission of a virus from another animal to a human. In the last 2 years, several papers such as the Fleisch Atlas by the Heinrich Böll Foundation and the report by Human Society International have thematicized the relation between the production of animal goods and zoonoses in further detail. It's worth checking out. You can find the links in the podcast description. All in all, mass production, especially of animal goods, therefore represents a crucial vulnerability in the system. Tackling it is necessary to reduce future epidemic risks, but also to lower its influence on climate change. As with every crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic revealed many vulnerabilities in the system, but also opened new perspectives. While the global economy had to suffer under the consequences of the outbreak of COVID-19 and the breakdown of delivery chains, new trade partnerships were developing on local and regional levels, strengthening the autonomy of small towns and regions, and thereby also its resilience. Slowly, local networks grew stronger. People supported neighbors, friends, and relatives. One preferred to support the small supermarket or the farmer on the corner instead of buying at the supermarket. Some even started to grow their own vegetables in the garden. In other towns, these structures were further developed on social media, allowing a better interconnectedness and distribution of knowledge, goods, and resources, as in the case of a small town in Brandenburg. The Austrian government even started the campaign Das ist Österreich in autumn 2020 to support Austrian agriculture. Overall, regionalization and globalization, which is the practice to conduct business according to both local and global considerations, have since then become widely discussed in the media. Strengthening infrastructures in mobility, industry, healthcare and agriculture at the local, regional and especially cross-border level allows a better distribution of resources according to need and thus strengthens the resilience capacity of these regions. Especially in border regions where 1/3 of the European population lives, better networking and cooperation is necessary to guarantee the supply of these regions in times of a crisis. In addition to that, shifting fragile global networks of long delivery chains and the production of agricultural goods to a local and regional level is an important tipping point to a social ecological transformation and a more resilient system. Not only because it reduces the risk of spreading the viruses, but secures jobs and economy, reduces the pressure on global flows, and strengthens local and regional agriculture. Later one even could enforce the regional production of seasonal and local products. But also the production of animal goods on smaller farms and the reduce of animal goods in general are crucial in this context. However, it's not easy because in the overall context it is clear that the mentioned elements, global interconnectedness, mass production and global economic interdependencies, are an integral part of a system, a capitalist system that has developed over the last decades with the flow of globalization and shaped a normality while disconnecting humans slowly from nature. Tackling this is complex because the human psyche plays a crucial role also in terms of decision-making and crisis prevention. It is normal for me to find bananas and coffee in the supermarket in an unlimited amount, to buy tomatoes and strawberries in winter, to travel anywhere I want, and that epidemics and pandemics till COVID-19 did not appear in my reality. And this is not only my reality. The fact that it's a white woman from the global north saying it makes clear that this normality is permeated by colonial structures. But going into this topic would far go beyond the scope of this podcast. Of course, critics of mass production, especially the one of animal and plant goods, are not new. Climate activists and scientists have been criticizing them for decades, emphasizing the exploitation of soils and ecosystems, but since COVID-19 we should know that these structures are not only bad, but dangerous and threaten the economic security of the whole world. Oh yeah, and besides ecological and thereby also human well-being. It is obvious that their continuation by politics and companies accepts and even encourages the development of new epidemic risks and the collateral damage of millions of people and ecosystems for profit, including you and me. Establishing better infrastructures and interconnections on and between regional, local and transnational areas is a necessity. Likewise, banning structures of mass production and localizing delivery chains is important. It's time that the EU and politicians withdraw funding for big companies especially in the agricultural sector, to stop the destruction of livelihood. COVID-19 has proved that we need better regional networking structures and that altogether we can make a difference. This year is the first year after the pandemic that feels normal. At least it gives most people in the global north once again this illusion that everything is normal, despite the news are being full of wildfires in Greece, Hawaii and Lampedusa, of the droughts in southern Europe and the new temperature records in the oceans. The climate crisis is here, and the glass of the normality in the global north has deep cracks. Some people know it's only a matter of time till it will break, because it's the nature of a crisis to recur as long as the roots of the problems are not solved. Thanks for listening.